okay? And I'm not going to jeopardize the prosecution of the foundation of what we have found because I give you information. Because what Moynihan was saying is anything I give to you folks, you're going to leak it. You're going to leak it to the tentacle of the globalist syndicate, the bought off lamestream fake media that you discussed. You're going to leak it to the globalists there. You're going to leak it to the globalists on the Republican side, globalists on the Democrat side. There's no positive benefit for us to give you 6,000 pages of documents that opens up the entire can of worms known as the Clinton Foundation on the criminal charges.
And, you know, now we're talking about the Clinton Foundation. I mean, this is the biggest stink bomb there is, and it's simple. It's a simple story. It's not a charity. It's never been a charity. When it stopped collecting money for the archival library in Little Rock, it's not a charity. All that money, these guys said between I don't know, hundreds of millions to up to 2.5 billion on paper. Now, Charles Ortel says we don't have no idea what they ran through. They could be $100 billion. I mean, it's an unbelievable amount of money, which, you know, Hillary Clinton's paying for a wedding out of it and all that stuff. But it's not a charity. Anybody cover that in the mainstream press? Did Fox cover that? Hey, the Clinton Foundation, the Clinton Global Initiative, not a charity. All that money you gave to them. I was actually asked by George Stephanopoulos when I was at ABC in 2004 to come to Washington, to come to a dinner and, you know, and pay for and help support the Clinton Foundation, to help give some money. George Stephanopoulos, reporter, journalist. Yeah, he's journalist. Yeah, I didn't do it because I thought, wow, that's really partisan. I mean, I'm not supposed to be partisan. I'm not going to do this.
And remember how he got that job, right?
Yeah,
he was Bill Clinton's punching bag in the Oval Office. You know, Bill Clinton used to parade him in every morning with Bill Clinton's temper, yell and scream at him for stuff he wasn't happy with, and then they parade George Stephanopoulos out of the Oval Office. And that's what he was for a couple, 3 years before he got the gig in the bought-off lamestream fake media to carry the water for the globalists there.
But one thing I want to bring up with the Clinton Foundation, now we're talking about it, I mean, you know, Horowitz had in his report, we talked about it on your show, and it talked about a meeting between Comey and a top deputy at the FBI, and one of the meeting notes said that they were going to talk about, because nobody could remember it, and that was Clinton Foundation and crimes against children. So the Clinton Fraud Foundation, which is not a charity, and then them doing evil stuff to children, was a meeting note with the FBI that Comey couldn't remember. That was in the Horowitz report. Listen, if he and Fox, nobody covered that. But that was in a report. I mean, that's in a report. And
it's labeled conspiracy theory, Greg, and it's in black and white. And you've had it on your show. We've discussed it on your platform. We've discussed it on my platform.
That's a stink bomb. If Horowitz was in the tank, he wouldn't drop that stink bomb.
I mean, he wouldn't have dropped all these stink bombs that's leading to people being fired and terminated in the Department of Justice and FBI that at this level, at the highest levels, that's never happened in our country's history.
There are some people that write me saying nobody's going to go to jail. They're not going to prosecute anybody. Please tell us all that at some point the hammer of justice is going to drop.
You don't have to listen, Greg. Folks don't have to listen to me. Just listen to what Moynihan and Doyle said at that hearing in public. Okay? Again, not covered in the bought-off lamestream fake media, including controlled opposition Fox News.
But the people are going to be prosecuted.
You get grief whenever we bring up about Fox News and we tell the truth about Fox. I get incredible grief about it. But the bottom line is they're controlled opposition. Everybody buying into this, they're fair and balanced, and they're the yin to the yang of the globalists. Forget it. They're part of the globalist syndicate. Just look at their players. I mean, Murdoch sits in the Council on Foreign Relations, for goodness sakes.
Yeah. Well, then
listen to what Moynihan and Doyle said. A couple things, right? With the Clinton Foundation. The foundation, and you mentioned this, and you've talked about this, and you've dissected this with Charles Ortel. The foundation has acted as a foreign agent, an unregistered foreign agent of multiple countries, and it's not entitled to its 501c3 charitable status. They also talked about misrepresentation and misappropriation of funds. They did not comply with the regulations. As you've stated, Greg, the foundation was based in the Clinton Library. All this other stuff they've done, Clinton Global Initiative, all these other things have nothing to do with the charter from the IRS for their 501c3 status. So they're in violation. They said that they were involved with organizations, countries, and issues that according to IRS regulations, they were not granted status to do. They talked about misuse of funds. They didn't use funds for charitable causes. They said, direct statement, they're not a charitable organization, but they were a closely held family partnership that was used to advance the agendas of the family members, Bill, Hillary, Chelsea. And they also said the donors were subject to taxes. Since that they were taking tax deductions that they were donating to a charitable organization. Thank goodness you didn't take Stephanopoulos on his idea, because you'd have tax issues right now, Greg.
Yeah.
Okay. In addition, they said European countries were in discussions with high-level senior officials at the Clinton Foundation, read Bill and Hillary, with contracts not associated with the guidelines for the Clinton Foundation. Their administration charges were at least 60% of funds raised, when the charity should have an administration charge of about 15%. In addition, pay-to-play donations were rampant. So in other words, donate to the Clinton Foundation, and guess what? Hillary, who's now Secretary of State, will make sure that you get the weapons you want. Okay? They specifically isolated Mozambique with the Clinton Foundation, acting as a foreign agent. Listen to this, that with Mozambique, the Clinton Foundation was brokering money and brokering pharmaceuticals. Then they were asked the question, based on the facts, do you, Moynihan and Doyle, believe there was probable cause of criminal wrongdoing? Answer, yeah, both said, yes, significant wrongdoing. Do you believe that there was criminal activity with the Clinton Foundation? Answer, quote, yes. In addition, they were told by the CFO, who stated, it's been pushed through Zero Hedge, quote, I know where all the bodies are buried. They went on, Mr. Clinton mixed personal business and the Clinton with the Clinton Foundation, used donated funds for personal use. And they were pushed, well, what type of personal use? Quote, funds were used as a piggy bank for senior leaders of the foundation, Bill, Hillary, Chelsea, for personal expenses such as vacations, end quote. And then they dropped the bomb. And they said, it is our knowledge, because we have been in touch with the field office of the FBI in Little Rock, that there is an active criminal investigation that's open and ongoing of the foundation. And then they were pushed, because there were a couple of Republicans, Mises or something his name was. Well, how do you know that? What evidence do you have of that? They said, the FBI was calling us. And this is after we turned over documents. But if you want proof, they said, we have pictures. So in other words, they were clued off that Department of Justice airplane, a jumbo jet, was going to land in Little Rock, and that people were going to get off that plane and go to the foundation and take boxes out of the foundation and put them back on that plane. And they documented it with pictures. The only way that Moynihan and Doyle could have known that is because they were tipped off by somebody in the FBI or Department of Justice saying, hey, just to let you know that we're on this, why don't you stop by Little Rock's airport about, let's say, 8 a.m. and check out the plane and check out the tail number and run a check on that, where it's from. And by the way, why don't you check out where they go and what they take out of where they're going? And why don't you check out that those same boxes are being put on that plane? And let me tell you, and they went on. So now they've unearthed the fact that there is this active, ongoing criminal investigation of the Clinton Foundation that's ongoing, run not through Hoover, but through the FBI and through the Department of Justice.
Separate cases.
And then, as you said, and they said, well, conclude this, give us some conclusions about the money. How much money do you think was run through the foundation? And this is where they said between $400 million and $2.5 billion that they've traced was used improperly. Now, one other piece of information I was told is that that's a Department of Justice plane on the same week Moynihan and Doyle testified in front of Congress. A Department of Justice plane flew again to Little Rock. More documents were put on that plane and flown back to Washington. And a Department of Justice plane that same week flew to New York at the airport closest to the Chappaqua Clinton home, and documents were also put on that plane and flown back to Washington. So when people say nothing is being done, you know, Tracy Beans in her investigation has unearthed the fact that there is a grand jury impaneled for the uranium-1 issue. She's unearthed that with her research.
That's another separate case. Again, that's a whole another separate case. It's a huge case.
Right.
It's a huge. These are all massive, never seen before cases in America. This is massive. You never had a former president and former Secretary of State involved in a massive charity fraud. You never had a sitting president involved in a fraud, involved in a sedition and treason and knock out an incoming president. You never had a former president flying pallets of money to the #1 state sponsor of terrorism, according to his State Department, Obama, and a deal that they said was signed that was never signed. You never had a Secretary of State and a president funneling arms to a known terror organization to overthrow Assad. These are all massive, mind-blowing cases.
That's right. And it actually links into why the deep state targeted General Flynn. You mentioned this weapons running operation run through the Obama administration. Well, what I've been told by a number of folks from different agencies that the Clinton Foundation is actually a front for one of our intelligence agencies, and it's used for not only money laundering, but it's used for laundering weapons. And let's face it, there have been and remember in this testimony from Doyle and Monahan, remember how he said that they had this relationship with Mozambique that involved money laundering money, but also pharmaceuticals?
Yeah.
Well, you know, there's some recent deaths, and all we have to do is look north of the border here in Canada recently, within the past 6-8 months. Remember, there was this pharmaceutical executive who reportedly was a murder-suicide with his wife. Well, it turns out now with the investigation, it appears that she had been tortured and then killed, and then he was killed, and it wasn't a murder-suicide. Well, take a guess who they had a relationship with pharmaceutical sales, and in particular through Haiti.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, the Clinton Foundation.
The Clinton Fraud Foundation.
So go to General Flynn. You know, the reason why he was targeted is specifically what you discussed with the weapons running operation as it relates to Benghazi. You know, I've had a number of different people, General Paul Vallely, General Tom McInerney, Admiral Lyons, God rest his soul. He recently died. He was in charge of the Pacific Fleet. He was an icon in the Navy. He has been a regular on my show, a regular source for me over the years. Admiral Lyons. They sat on a Benghazi commission, and their conclusions were that Benghazi was a weapons running operation that was run by the Obama administration, in particular Hillary Clinton at the State Department, that they were bringing arms into Libya. Stevens essentially became the first ambassador to Al-Qaeda. We were weaponizing Al-Qaeda to get rid of Gaddafi. Why? Because Gaddafi was no longer playing the globalist game. He was turning in terrorists that the globalists had supported. He was talking about leaving the utilization of the dollar. He was talking about having a gold-backed currency, the gold dinar, that it was in direct opposition to the central banks, the globalist-controlled central banks, who are actually the puppet masters of the Obamas and Clintons and Bushes and Ryans and McConnells and Schumers and Pelosi's and Romneys and McCain's and all these actors. That we were funneling arms into Al-Qaeda to get rid of Gaddafi, which they did. That country is a smoldering hole right now compared to what it used to be. And we're upset about that. The globalists are perfectly happy about that because they rape and pillage yet another piece of real estate and a bunch of people and got their gold and silver out and stopped what Gaddafi was trying to do. And I'm not trying to say Gaddafi was a good guy. He was a bad guy, but he had flipped a number of years before to playing against the globalists. So then once they killed Gaddafi, Stevens, the ambassador, was in charge of bringing those arms, getting them back, and then funneling him into Turkey. The last person he met with was a Turkish official, right? Get him into Turkey into Syria. And remember, Erdogan's the president of Turkey, or whatever he is, dictator of Turkey, whatever you want to call him. Erdogan's son was involved with ISIS of running their oil.
Yeah.
So they were bringing the arms into ISIS, and essentially what was said was the United States and our allies were weaponizing, training, funding ISIS, and General Flynn in 2014. He started leaking some of this information. Remember, he used to be the director of the Defense Intelligence Agency under Obama. He started leaking this information, and he was summarily fired by Obama. So again, because he wasn't going to be part and parcel to that. And he said, "My gosh, this crazy group that they're essentially." Obama referred to him as a JV team. Well, actually, he just should have referred to him as our team. Yeah. And so remember, Obama, ISIS was not going to be. They were expanding. Under Hillary Clinton's watch at State Department and Barack Obama's watch as president, ISIS not only came into being but flourished.
Oh yeah, big time.
But what happened under Trump?
Blew him to pieces. And
that's just not coincidence. That's just not, he cut off their money supply, right, to starve them out, and then made them so that they were vulnerable so they could be taken out militarily.
Yeah. They're shelling what they used to be.
So, there's so many different issues here. And I understand why people are frustrated, but, they got to look around. When he got there, we had a corrupt police force, right? The FBI and Department of Justice. So before you can have a trial, you gotta make sure the cops that are arresting people are doing it the right way and they're not part of the problem, right? Okay, so that took some time to clean up. Then he looked at the judiciary and said, "We got a bunch of bad actors here in the judiciary," right? So what's he been doing? He's been bringing new people in that are constitutionalists, rule of law people into all levels of the judiciary. I can't remember how many he's had now appointed, 85, 86, 88 judges at all different levels, plus 2 Supreme Court justices. So now you got a sheriff that's more honest, although let's face it, there's still deep state players in there because these folks are like cockroaches. They're everywhere. Second, you had to clean out the judiciary. Well, he's doing pretty good there, but there's still a bunch of deep state cockroaches there too. And so if he would have brought charges, let's say he would have brought charges a year ago. If you have dirty sheriffs that are conducting dirty investigations so that the cases can be thrown out, what good does it do that Hillary Clinton or Barack Obama or George Bush was in an orange jumpsuit a year ago only to get a mistrial and get put back out on the street? Okay, so then you got to get the judiciary more in line. Well, he's been doing that. But what happens if you get in front of a dirty judge? We've already seen the ramifications of a dirty judge with Judas Roberts when he was, I believe, blackmailed to flip his vote in order to support Obamacare back in 2012. So you got to clean this stuff up, and it takes a lot of time, and it's very frustrating to people. But it's also troublesome that people that pride themselves as being patriots